1970 was the mountaintop and the cliff edge for American muscle. It was a year of contradictions, when the sound of big block thunder still echoed across drag strips and suburban boulevards. Yet a gathering storm loomed on the horizon. Horsepower still ruled the streets, but insurance companies, fuel prices, and emissions regulators were sharpening their knives. The golden age of American performance, born out of youthful rebellion and competition, was about to change forever. What had started as a roar was on the verge of becoming a sigh. Plymouth's GTX, once the self-proclaimed gentleman's hot rod, felt the hit harder than most. Production plunged from more than 14,900 in 1969 to just 7,748 units in 1970. The muscle car world had reached full throttle and suddenly saw the warning light flicker on. For the GTX, 1970 represented both culmination and conclusion. The car had evolved from a fierce statement of mid-1960s bravado into a refined, mature symbol of American performance. Plymouth built it for those who wanted to go fast but didn't want to shout about it too loudly. In a world where road runners screamed with cartoon graphics and Super Bs wore stripes like war paint, the GTX exuded subtle menace. It was performance wrapped in poise, luxury paired with raw muscle. The final model year of the first generation would be its brightest and last flourish before the lights dimmed on Detroit's high-compression dream. Limelight doesn't whisper, it shouts in color. Plymouth's FJ5 hue, one of the brand's infamous high-impact colors, was impossible to ignore. It radiated optimism, even defiance, against the drab tones of the coming decade. The particular 1970 Plymouth GTX in question spent more than 30 years quietly tucked away in a Los Angeles storage yard, its once vibrant limelight paint buried beneath layers of black dust and decades of silence. When the garage door finally creaked open, it wasn't a barn-find cliché waiting for a trailer. It was a time capsule. The car emerged blinking into daylight, its scars and oxidation only deepening its mystique. What it lacked in shine, it made up for in story. After 3 decades of hibernation, the car surfaced on Build My Ride, a digital platform for restorers and enthusiasts. The listing carried a build status of 25% and a parts inventory of 82%. Numbers that might confuse the uninitiated but spoke volumes to those who restore classics. In Build My Ride's terms, 25% means the car's journey toward resurrection has begun. A rolling project, stripped of fantasy but rich in potential. The 82% figure refers to completeness, an impressive inventory of original and OEM equivalent parts. For a vehicle that hadn't turned a wheel since the Clinton administration, that was a small miracle. This Limelight survivor was one of several cars liberated from a long-forgotten Southern California lot in August 2024. Decades of West Coast living had given it a unique kind of weathering, outer panels scabbed with surface rust from clogged drains. Yet the floors and frame rails remained nearly perfect. The dry air had been kind. Where Midwest salt eats cars alive, California simply lets them age gracefully. This one carried its rust like a badge of endurance. The listing confirmed a clean California title, original blue plates, and a reserve price that had to be met before ownership could change hands. For now, the GTX was both artifact and opportunity. The fender tag reads like a manifesto from the Mopar Golden Age. Decoded, it tells the story of one of Plymouth's most potent configurations, E86 designating the 440 cubic inch Super Commando engine, rated at 375 horsepower and 480 lb-ft of torque. D32 indicating the heavy-duty torque flight automatic transmission. RS23 confirming it as a GTX hardtop coupe, and U0L identifying the model year and Lynch Road assembly plant. FJ5 stands for Limelight Green, that eye-searing shade that makes the car look as if it glows from within. V6X marks the black tail stripe, V1X the black vinyl roof. H51 signals air conditioning, C55 bucket seats, and C16 the console, all still present today. In short, this car was born well-optioned, balancing muscle with comfort in classic GTX fashion. Under the hood now rests a later 1974 440 HP engine. Not the original but era-correct. It wears factory manifolds, correct brackets, and intact AC hardware. Numbers matching purists might wrinkle their noses, but the spirit of authenticity runs deeper than serial digits. This engine keeps the car honest, functional, and faithful to its time. Behind it, the trusty 727 TorqueFlite transmission remains, feeding power to an 8 3/4-inch rear axle with a 2.76 open differential. It's a cruiser setup, perfect for long, smooth bursts of torque rather than quarter-mile brutality. Rolling on 14-inch rally wheels wrapped in fresh BFG radial T/S, the GTX still carries itself with quiet dignity, waiting for its chance to thunder again. Step inside, and you're met with an interior that's equal parts time capsule and to-do list. The black P6XA vinyl buckets, weary but intact, still cradle the driver with that signature Mopar firmness. The console shifter moves through the gears with mechanical sincerity. The original wood-grain dash, sun-faded and cracked, tells its own California story, a story of summers, heat, and years of stillness. Yet everything is here. The R11 Music Master AM radio, the factory air controls, the heater, and the original glass with its faint blue tint. The trunk floor shows only minor pinholes, the floors remain solid, and the frame rails still wear streaks of limelight beneath the grime. It's the kind of find restorer's dream of complete, restorable, and radiating history. Of course, time has left its mark. Both quarter panels and trunk extensions need replacement. The Dutchman panel carries the usual corrosion, and one door corner has softened with rot. The front fenders bear the scars of 1970s enthusiasm, cut open for oversized tires during the heyday of street racing. It's a period-correct wound, but one that will now require careful metalwork to heal. Still, unlike many Rust Belt GTX survivors, this one doesn't need floor or rail replacement. Its bones are good. What it demands now is patience, precision, and the kind of love only a true Mopar fan can provide. The GTX name carried real weight in its day. Introduced in 1967 as Plymouth's gentleman's hot rod, it was meant to appeal to the discerning performance buyer, someone who wanted all the horsepower without the brashness of a road runner. Standard power came from the big block 440 Super Commando, while those with deeper pockets could opt for the legendary 426 Hemi. The car balanced brutality and civility in equal measure, a formula that made it stand apart even within Chrysler's own lineup. By 1970, the GTX had matured. It wore a redesigned front fascia, sculpted tail lamps, and more refined trim. Beneath the cosmetic changes, it remained all brawn under the manners. That year, every GTX hardtop came standard with a 440, while the 440 plus 6 and 426 Hemi were optional. Contemporary road tests spoke of the car's dual nature. Car life measured a 440 automatic at 14.5 seconds in the quarter mile at 99 miles per hour. Car and driver clocked 6.6 seconds to 60 for the 6-barrel version. Motor Trend poetically called it a symphony of brute force wrapped in restraint. It was an apt description. Few cars managed to blend refinement and raw torque so seamlessly. At a base price of $3,535, the GTX wasn't cheap. Options added up quickly: $357.65 for air conditioning, $105.20 for power steering, $54.45 for the console, $61.55 for the AM radio, and $27 for the tail stripe. Configure it like this California example with AC, console, black vinyl top, and Limelight paint, and the sticker approached $4,140 before tax and destination. Adjusted for inflation, that's about $33,000 today. A fair price for a car that could run with the fastest in the land while keeping you cool and comfortable in the process. Limelight cars, in particular, were rare sights even when new. Plymouth never published official color breakdowns, but Mopar historians estimate roughly 478 Limelight GTX were built in 1970. Around 277 with 4 speeds and 201 with automatics. Out of 7,748 total production, that's less than 10%. Add air conditioning and console to the mix, and the number narrows even further. In collector terms, that places this example firmly in the scarce and significant category. Adding to its story is a small but important detail: the N95 and N97 emissions codes. Those designations identify it as a California-compliant car, built at Lynch Road with turned-down exhausts instead of chrome tips and extra emissions plumbing beneath the hood. It was a subtle concession to West Coast regulations that now adds a layer of provenance. Today, collectors value such details because they speak to authenticity and place, a tangible connection to where the car lived and how it was originally sold. On Build My Ride scale, the build status of 25% signals a project in motion rather than neglect. It means the car has moved beyond the discovery stage, cleaning, sorting, evaluation, and into partial assembly or mechanical revival. The 82% parts inventory score, according to the site's documentation, measures completeness rather than condition. In essence, this GTX comes with most of its original DNA intact. Trim pieces, AC components, drivetrain elements, and interior fittings are all present. That completeness is what separates a true restoration candidate from a mere shell. The current bid stands at $2,500, with the reserve not yet met and 8 days remaining in the online auction. On the collector market, GTX values depend heavily on configuration and correctness. Non-numbers 440 automatics in driver-grade condition can fetch $40,000 to $60,000. Factory-correct restorations with rare colors and options often cross into six figures. This example, with its Limelight paint, air conditioning, and California pedigree, has the potential to land solidly in that upper tier once restored. For now, it exists in a liminal state, half memory, half machine. Its blue California plates whisper of a time when muscle cars prowled Sunset Boulevard, their dual exhausts echoing off glass storefronts. The fender tag confirms its identity. The paint confirms its personality. Every scratch, dent, and faded panel tells part of its journey. This is not merely an artifact of horsepower. It's a relic of optimism, a monument to the audacity of an era. When you look at a 1970 GTX, you can feel the end approaching. You can sense it in the way the body lines flow with confidence but not excess, in the way the interior straddles the line between sport and sophistication. It's a car aware of its own peak, a swan song written in steel and chrome. Within a year, compression ratios would fall, insurance premiums would rise, and the once glorious muscle era would begin to fade into memory. Yet the GTX, especially in its final form, carries an undeniable sense of pride. It wasn't built for compromise. It was built to remind the world what Detroit was capable of when passion ruled the drawing board. Restoring a car like this isn't just a mechanical exercise. It's an act of preservation. Every bolt, every bracket, every piece of trim holds a story. The way the sun reflects off faded Limelight paint, the texture of worn vinyl, the smell of aged rubber. All of it carries history. Bringing it back isn't about perfection. It's about continuity. Cars like this deserve to live again, not as trophies behind velvet ropes, but as rolling reminders of when America dared to build machines that were loud, fast, and unapologetically bold. The 1970 Plymouth GTX, especially in Limelight, is a physical metaphor for that defiant spirit. It's a car that stood at the intersection of glory and decline, a flash of brilliance before the curtain fell. This example, unearthed after decades of silence, stands ready to tell that story once more. Whether it ends up in a meticulous restoration or remains a preserved survivor, it already fulfills its purpose, reminding everyone that legends never truly fade. They just wait for the right light to shine again.